Okay, let's dive in. We're all swimming in information these days.
Oh, definitely. Emails, articles, social feeds.
It's just constant. And you read something, maybe you even take notes, and then, I don't know, a week later,
Hmm.
it feels like it didn't really stick.
Yeah, like it just washed over you. You didn't truly learn it or, figure out how to actually use it.
Exactly. And it turns out the way many of us were taught, maybe the way we still try to learn sometimes, might actually be part of the problem.
Oh,
So today we're doing a deep dive into a source that, well, it really flips the script on this whole idea.
okay.
We're looking at an article by Shiva Narayan Taxshila Page. It's titled Four Pillars of Knowledge Transfer for Student Excellence.
Hmm.
And this piece suggests learning isn't about passively just soaking stuff up, but something much more active and, frankly, a lot more engaging.
That's right. And our mission here in this deep dive we've put together specifically for you is to really unpack what this article means by knowledge transfer, why it's framed as the key to real excellence, going way beyond just remembering facts. It links learning straight to how our brains actually work and why it's absolutely essential for the learner for you to be an active participant.
And it's not just for educators, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, yes, the article talks about schools, but the core ideas, they're super relevant to anyone trying to learn anything.
Like a new skill for work or a hobby.
Exactly. Or even just trying to get your head around some complex topic you're interested in. We're pulling out those key nuggets that can help you make learning stick better.
Okay, so let's jump into the main challenge the article lays out. It basically argues that a lot of traditional learning feels, well, ineffective because it's just too passive.
Right, like sitting in a lecture hall or just reading a textbook chapter.
Yeah, just taking it in, but not really doing much with the information. The article says, look, that's not really learning. That's just like information delivery.
And that's the crucial difference it hammers home. Teaching as just delivery versus knowledge transfer as actually getting it, internalizing it.
Okay.
The article argues that real transfer doesn't happen just teacher to student, like a download. It happens source to brain.
Source to brain, meaning directly from the book or the material.
Yes.
Yeah.
It requires intense, active engagement by the learner. It's you actively grappling with the book, with the material, with the problem itself.
So how does that actually work? The article brings in some foundational concepts, right?
It does. It talks about learnography.
Learnography.
Yeah, which basically sees the student not as like an empty bucket waiting to be filled, but as someone actively building their own landscape of knowledge.
Okay, an active builder.
And then there's brainpage theory. This is the framework it uses to understand how knowledge actually gets represented, built, and connected up inside the brain.
Interesting. So learnography is the approach. Brain page theory is the brain mechanism.
Sort of, yeah.
Wow.
And the article says this active building uses specific tools or approaches.
Ah, yes. It mentions things like DIYA, that's the do-it-yourself attitude.
Right. Very important.
And motor science, emphasizing physical action.
Yes, the doing part.
Yeah.
And space-based learning, which is about organizing knowledge spatially, and goal-oriented task operation, or GOTO.
GOTO, like setting specific tasks.
Exactly. Structuring learning around purposeful tasks. These are presented as the active ingredients for making knowledge transfer happen.
Got it.
And all this leads to what the article calls the four core merits of knowledge transfer. These are like the pillars defining excellence. And the progressive stage.
Progressive stages.
Yeah. Knowledge, understanding, application, and higher ability. Each builds on the last.
All right, let's dig into these pillars then. First one, the base, knowledge. What does the article mean by that? It's not just facts, you said.
No, not just random facts. It's acquiring structured information concepts, principles, the actual substance. But the key difference that the article stresses is how you get it.
Okay.
So traditional teaching might be a lecture about photosynthesis.
Yeah.
The knowledge transfer method, as described here, involves the student actively interacting with the source material itself, reading it, writing about it, exploring it, asking questions because you're engaged with it.
So less being told, more finding out.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And this active process, the article suggests, is literally how your brain builds what it calls brain page modules.
Brain page module, like little units of knowledge in your head.
Kind of. Think of them as personal, interconnected mental pages or nodes. They get formed in your neural network every time you actively engage, read, write, practice. It's like building your own internal wiki page on that topic.
Huh. I like that analogy, an internal wiki.
And this is where DIYA, that do-it-yourself attitude, is so important. It's about you taking ownership of building these mental structures.
It shifts you from just receiving information.
Exactly. To actively constructing it in your own mind. The article calls this meaningful mental construction, not just surface memorization.
That makes a lot of sense. You're not just like downloading files, you're actually building the architecture.
Right.
Which leads us nicely into the second pillar, understanding. Because just having the building blocks isn't enough, is it? You need to know how they fit together.
Precisely. The article really emphasizes that knowledge alone is static, it's inert. Understanding is when you internalize it, you see the relationships, you connect new stuff to what you already know.
And how does brainpage theory explain that connection making?
This is fascinating. It talks about building Zide pathways.
Zide pathways.
Yeah, think of them as the neural routes, the synaptic links connecting different bits of knowledge. And it uses this cool framework for the connections. SOTIM.
SOTIM.
Right. Linking knowledge across space. Where did I learn this? Object. What is this related to? Time. When did I encounter this? Instance. What are specific examples?
Yeah.
And module. How does this fit into the bigger mental picture?
Wow. So your brain is constantly tagging information with context?
That's the idea. It helps build a richer, more connected understanding.
So in this model, the teacher isn't just lecturing anymore. What's their role?
Their role shifts quite dramatically. The article calls them task moderators and facilitators.
Okay.
They guide you with questions. They set up problems or tasks that basically force you to make those SOTIM connections and build those Zide pathways.
Less sage on the stage, more guide on the side.
Exactly that kind of idea. And DIYA comes in here too, right? It encourages you to explore the how and why things work, not just the what.
Pushing you towards deeper understanding.
Yes, leading to conceptual clarity and what the article calls cognitive mapping. You're literally building a mental map of the subject.
Okay, knowing and understanding. That's powerful. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Moving to pillar 3, application.
Yes.
This is where it hits the real world, right?
Right.
What can you actually do with all this knowledge and understanding?
Application in this framework is exactly that. Using what you've learned and understood to solve actual problems, make decisions, perform tasks out there.
Taking it off the page.
Totally. And this pillar connects directly to motor science, the idea that physical doing helps lock in learning, and GOTO, goal-oriented task operations.
Okay, connect those for me.
Well, the article suggests structuring learning activities around specific, purposeful tasks, the GOTO part, that require you to physically use the knowledge you're building. That's the motor science link.
So instead of just reading about, say, coding principles.
You'd be tasked with building a small program that uses those principles.
Got it. Forces you to apply it.
Exactly. Application bridges theory and practice. It makes the learning feel relevant, tangible. And critically, the article points out, it activates procedural memory.
Procedural memory. That's like muff memory for skills.
Pretty much. Riding a bike, playing piano, or solving a certain kind of math problem. It's essential for actual real-world competence, not just knowing about something.
Which brings us to the final goal, the peak of the pyramid. Pillar 4, higher ability. This sounds like more than just being good at applying stuff.
It is. The article defines this as a kind of synthesis. It includes advanced critical thinking, tackling complex, unfamiliar problems, innovation, being adaptable.
Wow, okay. Big stuff.
And even emotional intelligence. The article includes that too.
And this doesn't just happen from listening well.
Absolutely not. The article is clear. This emerges from sustained, active brain engagement. It comes from doing those repeated DIYA projects, from acquiring motor knowledge through practice, from continuously building and refining your own personalized brain page modules over time.
So it's built, not given.
Right. The outcome is what the article describes as an autonomous learner.
Autonomous.
Meaning self-directed.
Yeah, someone who can guide their own learning, tackle new challenges effectively, constantly adapt and improve their skills. And interestingly, the article also brings in the moral and social dimension here, suggesting true higher ability includes navigating the world ethically and with purpose. That's quite a comprehensive view of excellence. So this whole framework, these 4 pillars built on active transfer, it clearly highlights some issues with how things are often done now. What does the article pinpoint as the main problems?
It identifies several big ones. A major one is just the over-reliance on old-school passive methods. You know, the talking classrooms where students are basically just expected to sit and absorb.
Passive recipients.
Exactly. It also points a finger at a lack of support and respect for teachers, which can really stifle any attempts to innovate and shift towards these more active approaches.
Makes sense. Hard to change things without support.
And another huge one is neglecting motor knowledge and hands-on skills. often seen as, I don't know, less important than purely academic or theoretical knowledge.
Even though we just saw how crucial it is for application.
Precisely. The article argues this neglect is a major flaw, hindering brain development and practical skills.
And the result of all this?
Well, according to the article, it's students often finishing their formal education without the real-world competence they actually need for life and work. A knowing-doing gap.
That's a pretty strong critique. So based on this knowledge transfer framework, what's the proposed solution? What's the better way forward?
The article advocates for evolving towards what it calls a brainpage school system,
Okay.
a system grounded in learnography, really prioritizing that active, source-to-brain knowledge transfer.
What would that actually look like? What are the key features?
Well, things like consciously using space and objects in the learning environment to help students build that modular knowledge we talked about.
Making the environment part of the learning.
Yeah. And deliberately activating multiple brain circuits, sensory input, motor activity, cognitive processing, even the emotional or limbic system for more holistic, robust learning.
Engaging the whole brain.
Right. Making classrooms feel less like places of instruction and more like spaces of happiness and mastery, where students feel empowered by that DIYA spirit, maybe even acting like small teachers for each other.
And the teachers. What's their role?
A fundamental shift. They become learning transfer facilitators, or the article even uses the term learning architects.
Designing the learning experience.
Exactly. Designing the environment, the tasks, guiding the active engagement rather than just delivering content. The article also mentions success with things like miniature school structures.
What are those?
Smaller collaborative groups, possibly student-led, that foster peer learning, teamwork, and leadership skills, reinforcing that learning isn't just an individual thing.
Okay, interesting. So let's try to quickly summarize the absolute core takeaways from this article. What are the main points we should hold on to?
Okay, first big one. Knowledge transfer is the key to effective learning. It has to be active, source to brain, not just passive teaching.
Right. And the four pillars, knowledge, understanding, application, and higher ability, define excellence. They're progressive stages linked directly to brain function, like neuroplasticity and actually doing things.
And that DIYA, the do-it-yourself attitude, is critical. It boosts your autonomy, your problem solving, because it drives you to build those brain page modules.
Plus, integrating motor knowledge and goal-oriented tasks, the GOTO stuff, is vital. Doing things physically strengthens those brain connections, the Zide pathways, making knowledge easier to access and use.
And the flip side, current systems often limit that autonomy. They neglect motor skills and they don't push application hard enough.
Which means teachers really need to shift their role away from lecturing towards facilitating and designing these active learning experiences.
Yeah, becoming those learning architects. And those collaborative models like miniature schools seem promising for boosting engagement.
Ultimately, this source-to-brain approach bridges that gap between just knowing something in theory and being able to actually use it effectively.
Exactly. Now, let's bring this right back to you, the listener, because you're on your own learning journey, right? These principles from the Taxshila Page article, they aren't just for schools. They offer really profound insights into how your own brain learns best. Understanding the power of actively building your own brain page modules with that DIYA spirit.
Taking initiative.
Yeah, structuring your learning around clear goals using GOTO, consciously looking for ways to apply new information, and pushing towards that higher ability level. These things can fundamentally change how effectively you learn anything new.
So it gives you a kind of roadmap.
It really does.
Yeah.
A roadmap for turning that constant flood of information into knowledge and skills that are truly internalized, usable, and part of who you are.
Wow. Yeah, this deep dive really makes you pause and rethink how you interact with information, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's such a strong case for shifting gears from just being a passive receiver to actively, constructing your own knowledge, using your brain the way it seems designed to learn deeply by getting your hands dirty with the source material and actually doing something with it.
Yes, exactly. It makes a compelling argument that real understanding and the ability to actually use what you learn comes from that messy, active process of connecting ideas, building your own mental frameworks, and applying them, hopefully driven by clear goals.
It feels like a pretty significant challenge to traditional education, but also it offers a clear path forward, not just for educators, but for us as individual learners too, right?
Absolutely.
To really embrace that DIY mindset, actively seek out chances to apply new stuff almost immediately, and keep pushing ourselves toward that higher level of thinking critically and creatively.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe this deep dive into Shiva Narayan Taxshila Page's article leaves us all with this final thought to chew on. If active knowledge, transfer, that source-to-brain connection through doing, is the real key to deep, usable knowledge, what opportunities are you maybe missing every single day? Opportunities to turn just passively consuming information, whether it's reading an article like this, watching a video, even having a conversation, into knowledge and ability that's truly embedded, something you can actually use. What's one small change you can make in how you approach learning, maybe starting today?